which led to my assault. It all started on the night of my 14th birthday when my mother brought home her work colleague and one of her good friends. What I did not see coming was Khalid's affection towards me. At first it felt completely normal since I never had fatherly love towards me from anyone, but eventually I noticed a change in his behaviour. Ever since then, Khalid had started visiting very often, and my mom was completely okay and comfortable with it because she started to notice that I was attached with him, and since I had never gotten fatherly love, she didn't really say that there was anything wrong with it. One day, Khalid happened to come home with a gift bag in his hand without my mother being aware of it. What surprised me was it was what he said, that it was meant to be our little secret. So he actually gifted me a phone. Now, because I had no friends and I never really spoke to anybody other than school and outside of school, he said that it would just be, for me to always be there for him, and like we could talk about anything and he could just help me out if I needed anything. In the beginning I had my doubts, but eventually I felt it was all okay and he really did care for me. That's why he was just trying to be supportive, and he just loved me. That's all that I thought. But what I didn't know, that it could literally change my life forever. One night he had messaged me to ask if I was okay because I had not been feeling well that day, which suddenly escalated into a very uncomfortable conversation. Ever since that night, we almost spoke every single night, from exchanging calls or talking all night to messages throughout the day. Eventually, one day he asked me a very private question and asked if I touch myself. Now, at that time, me being only 14 and having no exposure to anything like this whatsoever, I was really confused. And then eventually he explained what it was, and he really did take me into confidence that there was no harm in doing it. And me being someone who had no knowledge of anything like this, I thought it was completely okay for me to share something like that with him. One night while my mother was working for a late shift, Khalid just turned up without informing me or my mother. Now, I thought my mum knew that he was going to be coming over, but unfortunately she didn't. Now, he had taken me into confidence in believing that my mum was aware that he's there, but unfortunately throughout she had no clue whatsoever. He said that we were going to go for a dinner out, so I agreed to him since I thought, okay, that's fine, my mum's aware of it. Now, we were going to this dinner place, but unfortunately that's not exactly where we were going. So while we were in the car, he asked me to touch him in his private areas and make him feel like everything that we used to do over the phone. Now, since we had already had such conversations, I thought it's okay and it's just love, but it really wasn't. A few minutes into the drive, I noticed that he was driving towards an isolated car park where he had locked the doors and asked me to come and sit on top of him. Now, me being me, I thought it was completely fine, so I gave myself in completely. And he asked me to remove my shirt, remove my trousers, and that's exactly when, at that time, I thought I was assaulted, but I had no idea what was happening to me, and I thought whatever we were doing was completely okay. I was raped at the age of 14 in a car at a very isolated place. Ever since that incident in the car, it was just a very normal thing for us to do. It wasn't the first time that it happened, but after a couple of nights he had just disappeared. I never saw him again. Since I got concerned where he had disappeared, I tried reaching out to him and started messaging him to see where he was, but unfortunately there was nothing I could do, so it was time for me to speak to my mom and tell her, since I was really attached to him. Now, my mother had no idea of all of this happening. My mother blamed me for everything that had happened, and she thought and said to me that it was all my fault. My mother's exact words were that your behaviour must have led Khalid to be that intimate with you. My mother had constantly blamed me till I was 18, that it was all my fault. And she constantly said there was nothing he could have done wrong, it was all my behaviour and the way I acted towards him and around him. When I was 18, I moved away to Scotland for uni, and now I'm 24. And after 10 years, I've realised it really wasn't my fault. It was because I was so isolated and I was alone, and I was taking advantage of being the only child who came from a very dark background, that it led to this. And now I've realised that that's what the process of grooming does to you. It makes you believe that you're the one at fault. What I experienced 10 years ago has helped me become a stronger woman today. The reason why I came out to speak here today is because I want to give a message to all the young girls and all the women out there who are suffering from this, and that are tricked into believing that it's their fault, because it never really is. It's never your fault.